So there's this idea of we don't know what we don't know. What are your thoughts about that quote?
The reality is that we do not know what we do not know. We don't know what we don't know. And when we realize that, sometimes it's too late. And so I'm really big on teaching people this idea of understanding that when you go into situations, it is imperative that you go into those situations as a student. You see, what ends up happening, and I noticed this from my time at the Air Force Academy, transitioning from being a freshman or fourth class cadet, right, at the bottom of the ladder, then making it all the way to the top as a senior cadet, as a first class cadet, and then graduating, going all the way back down to becoming a second lieutenant, and then going back to the bottom of the list as a student in pilot training. And what I found is that when I was mentoring, guiding, and coaching some of these young people that had excelled very well at the Air Force Academy, they were at the top of their game. They were at the top of the institution. And then when they went to pilot training, what ended up happening is they found themselves back at the bottom. But they felt like they should have been treated as though they were at the top. But the reality was they were starting over. And some of them struggled with becoming a student again. They struggled with going back to understanding that they didn't know what they didn't know. And they struggled with the idea that they had to step into a learning position. They had to humble themselves. And in humbling yourself, sometimes that is extremely challenging. Because when you humble yourself in that environment, that means you have to set your ego aside. That means you have to check your ego. That means you have to recognize that you are a student again. When you recognize that you're a student again, when you humble yourself, when you set your ego aside, when you do that, you recognize the things that you do not know. That puts you in a prime position to then begin to learn, to then begin to acquire the knowledge, to then begin to understand as a basic student all of the things that are happening. You begin to open up your aperture to ingest and to receive more learning, more guidance, more training, more education, more coaching, and that is where the real learning happens. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know. And they keep their ego, they lead with their ego, and they act as though they are always on top. You know, I was at the top of my game, flying airplanes in the military, teaching at the Air Force Academy, working in film TV production, filming TV shows. And then I got into my business of being an executive coach, doing keynote speaking, doing trusted advisory consulting work. And I realized that I had to go all the way back to the bottom and start as a student. I remain a consummate student. I am constantly learning, constantly reading, constantly seeking out guidance, wisdom, and knowledge so that I can be the best at my craft, so that I can continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to get better, realizing that there is so much that I don't know and that there is so much to learn. And because I keep myself in that frame of mind, that allows me to constantly seek out those who are smarter than me. That allows me to find what I don't know, to then begin to ask the right questions. You see, oftentimes it's said, maybe you've heard it said, that if you were the smartest person in your group, then maybe you're in the wrong group. You see, someone asked me recently what sustains me. And what sustains me are the people that I surround myself with, my starting five. What sustains me is the knowledge, the wisdom, and the inputs that I get from them. What sustains me on this journey of constantly learning, realizing that I don't know what I don't know, is that I'm always seeking out more knowledge. I'm always seeking out the more knowledgeable people. I am always being enriched and fulfilled by the people that I surround myself with, the starting five. Then beyond that, the rooms that I find myself in, realizing that I am not the smartest person in the room. And when I realize that I'm not the smartest person in the room, sometimes that's intimidating. Sometimes that's scary. Sometimes it's very, very uncomfortable. And sometimes it just requires me to put my ego aside. It requires me to humble myself. And it requires me to realize that I don't know jack. To realize that I have everything to learn. To realize that this is a prime opportunity to learn, get better, enrich myself, become smarter, become wiser, and then surround myself with the people that can help me to learn what I don't know. And here's the thing, once you realize that you don't know what you don't know, and then you begin to learn what you don't know, then that opens up the next window of things that you don't know. And life is a series of challenges, a series of learning experiences of the things that you don't know, of the things that you can do to grow. But you have to be willing to know what you don't know. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to set your ego aside. You have to be willing to set your pride aside. You have to be willing to humble yourself. And you have to be willing to know what you don't know. And in doing that, seek out the knowledge, the learning, the education to then learn and to then grow. That's what's going to help make you successful in whatever endeavor you choose to seek out, whether that's flying airplanes, whether that's leading people, whether that's being an entrepreneur, running your own business, it doesn't matter. Seek out those opportunities to grow. Seek out those opportunities to learn about the things that you don't know and to be comfortable being uncomfortable with not knowing what you don't know. Keep learning, keep growing, keep challenging yourself, keep checking that ego when it's necessary. Continue to learn what it means to humble yourself and continue to grow, continue to get better and better and better, one step at a time, one day at a time. Blue skies, fair winds, and all the best.